Greetings and welcome to another episode of Pop's Collection. I'm not Tweety, joining me is Pops, and today we're going to be talking about the DC animated film Injustice.
That is correct. Hi, everybody. How are you? Depending upon your feelings about this, might be short and sweet, might just be short. But either way, somewhat interesting. R rating, so it's not for everybody. R rating mostly for bloody violence.
Yeah.
And I can promise you there is a lot of bloody violence.
Mm-hmm.
If it was a Marvel film, it would be called Carnage. Definitely.
Okay.
But yeah, Injustice, I think most of the inspiration was from the video game. The actual Injustice story was more like a year one type story.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we do have, a comic here. I took this is from the 4th issue, I think, where, this is the picture of Superman losing Lois. And then, if you go back to the end of this particular issue, you could see the image of him murdering the Joker. So.
Yes, and it was. I have to say that the artistry in the comic is somewhat better than the animation, which was surprising because the animation and the voice acting was one of the few things that the critics thought was actually very good, which I found surprising.
Me too.
Voice acting, maybe. Jason, I can't remember his name. He played Oliver Queen in the Smallville series. He did the voicing for Superman.
Okay.
In this, I don't know if having Conroy be Batman would have made it any better. They really did not follow the comic storyline that much.
Actually, I think they pretty much did follow the comic.
Well,
at least from what I could tell, it was pretty much scene for scene.
There were a lot of things that were scene for scene, but I think that they chose to kill off more superheroes than maybe.
Okay.
That I thought was some of that stuff I didn't feel was really necessary to move the story along. Killing off the Flash and all the other superheroes.
Right. Well, if we're talking about the video game, I mean, we have to kind of mention that the game itself, was, I believe, even a crossover between Mortal Kombat. So, I mean, the violence and murder and all stuff like that is consistent with that kind of game. So.
Yes, and I kind of remember when that game came out, I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Fighting games are, are very popular, but the way they chose to do this story, I don't know. It was really, really violent.
Yeah.
We did get it kind of. How did you feel about the animation as far as it just, I don't know, it kind of looked a little weird on the facing.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of it. So
I just...
and the animation itself is not very fluid. Particularly a lot of the action scenes. I mean, some of the action scenes actually were done well, the fighting parts, but establishing shots and trying to like the car chase scene where Harley Quinn's in the Aeromobile or whatever it is, that stuff to me looked pretty poor. But
Yoki, definitely.
Yeah.
And what about Dick Grayson becoming Mr. Death, or
Deadwing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was like, okay. Now, I've seen that character in other animation stories, so...
Okay.
Not a new character, but the way they chose to make Dick Grayson that character, that was kind of I don't know.
Okay.
Anyways,
well, I mean, the other part of it that you have to kind of consider, it's almost like a Civil War. I'm not going to say rip-off. I don't think that's a appropriate term, but it definitely is similar. It's a similar story. You know, what if the superheroes lined up on different sides of the aisle and they fought each other? I mean, that's pretty much
well,
the same thing.
And
it makes sense in service of a video game, which is why you would have Batman fighting Superman and Wonder Woman fighting, you know.
Right, and what we get in this, which is not the first time, because there have been other DC animated where the Justice League has found out that Batman knows everybody's weakness,
yeah.
and he's got everybody's weakness already covered, you know?
Yeah.
So that is kind of a rehash of most of the other things. But I'm going to say that the majority of our superheroes that we follow and we like are ones that don't kill the bad guys, you know. And I guess you could fall. I think that's where the breakup of the Justice League came. That some of them decided to go with Superman and say, yeah, you know, and others, you know, decided no, we got to go with not killing. So it brought some interesting concepts or different thoughts that you could fall on either side. But all in all, it was not one of my favorites. And I know you're not that much of a DC guy anyways, but
well, I think the concept itself is interesting, you know, and they have to establish it that this takes place on an alternate Earth
22,
right, where Superman's father, Jonathan, is the one that survives and Martha is dead.
Correct.
And so I think that's, I guess, helpful, you know, and you kind of can see the crossover between the two. So I think the concept in and of itself is interesting. It's just, I think the you know, and it really wasn't that bad. And you know, the timing of the film, it being a runtime of like 78 minutes, was, you know, not too long.
Although there were times when it felt like it was a long movie, you know, that it was stretched out a little bit. So, but yeah, it almost became a dictatorship with Superman.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
You're either for me or you're against.
Right.
You know, which was, I think maybe if it was maybe done by a different animation company, maybe it would have been a little bit better, or if the writers themselves made the story run more fluidly. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Plastic Man, I don't know. He is kind of a comic relief type character. In the Plastic Man TV series, it was kind of that way, satirical, maybe, I guess you would call it.
Sure.
But he did actually have a somewhat of a serious part here, even though he kind of reminded me, because we lost the Flash early on in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that he was kind of the, you know, Flash has always been that kind of character.
Yeah.
Kind of like the DC Spider-Man, because that's
sure
the way Spider-Man was.
Yeah.
So Barry Allen was kind of a younger character, and what we got with Plastic Man was that somewhat comic relief that we would normally get from the Flash. So
right.
Yeah, I found it interesting that they panned everything, the writing, and feeling that the story didn't follow the actual comic that much, but they said that the animation was fine. They praised the animation, which I find really hard to believe.
Yeah, it's the exact opposite for me. I think they did fine with the story. It was the animation that was
right. Well, you know,
weakest point.
I guess it just looked really weird. They made black lines for the cheek, and you didn't know if it was sideburns or if it was just supposed to be, you know.
Yeah, I think it was like shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they all had like these shadow things on their knuckles, which was kind of weird too. You know, not.
I know, it was just crazy, right?
Yeah, I guess it was that particular art style, but you know, to me, it didn't really
Right.
jive.
Which I thought, you know, when I first saw it, I thought, oh, well, it's probably just the art style of the way the comic was. And then I saw the comic and it was like, no, it's not.
No.
You know, so.
Well, the other thing you have is you've got it also the fact that it takes place in a different Earth, and you kind of can see a little bit because when they bring Superman from Earth 1, or wherever it is,
What he says is Earth 1.
right, you know, his costume is markedly different than the Superman's
Correct.
in there.
Yes.
Know, so.
Yes, I think that with this style of animation, they over exaggerated the muscles, and you know, they just, I don't know, I guess it was hard to get past that, you know, to enjoy the movie that much.
Sure.
You know, but hey, not for everybody.
No.
But if you're a DC fan, you got to kind of own it, you know, for your collection. If you're a DC guy,
yeah, or you know, if it's on, you know, HBO Max or whatever, and you or some other streaming platform, and you happen to catch it
for free.
Right, it's not. You know, I don't know if I would necessarily recommend going out of your way to watch this, but if it's on, you know, somewhere, you know,
it would
it's
be
not
an
bad.
Interesting watch.
Yeah.
Definitely, you know, and it's only 78 minutes of your time, so
yeah.
Hey, whatever. I would be interested to hear from any of our DC listeners that how they felt about it. You know, because there are some of our listeners that are just strictly DC, or as you are, mostly pro Marvel. I try to keep an even keel, but you know, this one it was very difficult.
Yeah, and I will say also in the film's defense that the portrayal of Harley Quinn was not completely insufferable like in other ones, so it does have that going for it.
Well, it was kind of a quiet Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
So we didn't get too much of her, and thankfully, she did have some pretty interesting things to say when she got knocked out with the knockout gas. And so they I guess she was also a little bit of comic relief.
Oh, sure.
Hero Harley was definitely better than Harley Quinn. No question. But the Joker character himself, I don't. How did you feel about his voicing? He seemed like a regular Joker character, or
it's fun.
I wouldn't class him as one of the better voice actors of that, but he did a serviceable job.
Yeah,
and he definitely, probably, I'm gonna say, was one of the most sinister portrayals of Joker.
Agreed.
Also, you? Yeah, definitely. Kind of almost, I kind of felt like the end of the Joker movie where he was very violent on the talk show or the night show. I felt he was almost like that kind of a character. And to think that he stole kryptonite and the fear toxin, he had no qualms about killing another villain.
Right.
Or superheroes for that matter.
Right.
He didn't care.
Right.
He was definitely, and he did kind of get Batman before he died by faking him out and saying, hey, look, just wait till Superman gets here. Oh no, he'll never do that. He'll never do that. And surprise, surprise, he did. As you saw the picture at the end of the comic, it was just as graphic on the animated movie, definitely.
Yeah.
So, anything else you can think about that you would like to share, or what do you feel about the superheroes in that position of taking lives?
Yeah, I don't really have a category for that because obviously superheroes don't exist in real life, so there's not really a really good real life analog. But I could see. So I think that the power to execute justice is given to the power of the state, so the state does that. So, if the superheroes were acting as agents of the state, that would be a different thing. But they're not. If they're if Superman's going to places like North Korea and just taking him down or whatever, and threatening the president, things like that. So I don't
he's not being respectful to authority.
Right, or he's not even holding to a transcendent standard to judge other people by either. It's just his own personal feelings about what's right and wrong. And to me, that's a pretty crappy guide. You need something transcendent outside of yourself to know what is right and wrong. We would appeal to the word of God, God's law of what is right and wrong.
Right, and God tells us to give our enemies food, and water to drink, right? And don't, I feel like from that word that aren't supposed to, we're supposed to allow the authorities to do the judging and not us.
Right, but we can also petition our leaders to execute justice. That's how God ordained it. And so if they're not doing their job, you need to petition them to do their job.
Right. Or in our state, we should, our country, if they're not doing their job, then we vote somebody in that's going to do the job correctly.
Yeah.
Whereas in some countries, they don't have that.
Right.
So.
Right. There's a whole book called Slaying Leviathan about that, written by Glenn Sunshine, a book about Protestant resistance theory. And there's some interesting things about that. So for further reading, I would recommend that.
There you go. Excellent. Okay, well, if you have nothing else,
no,
then let's get this close to an end. I'm sure that'll make us all happy. But I know everybody's anticipating our high rating on this, so I'm going to go with a 2 on it. It was definitely, for me, below average.
Wow.
I know, hey, and I'm usually pretty liberal on the DC side, but I just didn't feel that they needed that much violence. I think they could have done a much better job if it was a PG-13 story.
All right.
And you?
I'll give it a 4. A little bit more generous. I think it's below average, but
I'm shocked.
Yeah, I know. But it's, like I said, I think the story is a lot better than the actual execution of it. I like the concept better than the actual thing.
Yeah. Oh, I love the concept, but I just think the execution was just that bad. So, and that's it.
All right.
We're good.
Good deal. All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in this week. We'll see you next week with a new episode. And until then, goodbye and God bless.
Bye. God bless. And tell your friends.